Your cat's food bowl might be a slow-motion health trap. Not unhealthy, not low quality, risky. But here's the problem. Federal loopholes let major brands legally use low-grade animal material that can be untraceable once it's rendered, then cover it with cute mascots and vet-recommended language. And it gets worse because this same aisle has seen FDA recalls and documented cases tied to mold toxins, vitamin overload incidents, and formulas that push kidney, heart, and urinary stress over time. Families trust these bags daily, especially for senior cats or cats with sensitive health, thinking they're doing the responsible thing. Meanwhile, court filings, settlements, and forensic label audits have been pointing at the same patterns for years. So today, I'm counting down the 10 brands to avoid and the few safer picks that actually respect feline biology. Stay with me to the end because the final safe picks may completely change what you buy next. 10. Kit and Kaboodle. We begin our indictment at the absolute bottom of the barrel. Kit and Kaboodle might look fun with its colorful shapes and budget-friendly price tag, but forensic analysis of the ingredient label reveals that this is not nutrition. It is industrial waste disguised as food. The first count against this brand is the primary protein source listed, meat and bone meal. Notice that it does not say chicken, beef, or turkey. In the legal language of the pet food industry, the generic term meat is a massive red flag. Under FDA guidelines, rendering plants are legally allowed to source raw materials from so-called 4D animals, meaning animals that were dead, dying, are diseased, or disabled, and process them into pet food ingredients. This means the protein in your cat's bowl could legally come from roadkill, euthanized animals, or livestock that arrived at the slaughterhouse dead on arrival. Once these tissues are boiled down into a meal, the DNA is destroyed and the origin becomes untraceable. But the danger isn't just where the meat comes from, it's what else is in the bag. To keep the price this low, Kit and Kaboodle relies heavily on ground yellow corn and soybean meal. Cats are obligate carnivores. They have zero biological requirement for corn. When you feed a cat a diet based on plant fillers and rendered bone meal, you create a dangerous spike in ash content. High ash levels force your cat's kidneys to work overtime to filter out the excess minerals. Over years of feeding, and this creates a state of chronic renal stress, slowly destroying the nephrons, the microscopic filters in the kidney, until the organ fails. Essentially, Kit and Kaboodle provides just enough calories to keep a cat alive, but not enough quality nutrition to keep them healthy. It is a slow-motion health crisis sold for a few dollars a bag. 9. EverPet. While Kit and Kaboodle is dangerous due to nutritional negligence, EverPet represents a far more immediate threat. Documented toxicity. Often found on the shelves of Dollar General, this brand targets pet owners looking for the absolute lowest price. But the forensic record shows that the cost savings here come with a potentially lethal hidden tax. The prosecution presents the evidence against Sunshine Mills Incorporated, the manufacturer behind EverPet. In late 2020 and extending into 2021, the FDA announced a series of recalls for Sunshine Mills products due to unsafe levels of aflatoxin. This is not a vague chemical additive. Aflatoxin is a potent mycotoxin produced by the mold Aspergillus flavus, which grows on corn that is stored improperly or subjected to drought stress. Because EverPet's formula is built almost entirely on cheap ground corn rather than meat, the risk of mold contamination is inherently higher. When a cat consumes aflatoxin, the liver attempts to process the poison but becomes overwhelmed. The clinical result is acute hepatotoxicity, severe liver damage. Owners may not notice anything is wrong until their cat develops jaundice, yellowing of the eyes and gums, or begins vomiting uncontrollably. By then, the liver damage is often irreversible. The tragedy of EverPet is that it preys on those who can least afford a veterinary emergency. Buying this food is not saving money. It is playing Russian roulette with your cat's liver. 8. 9. Lives 9 Lives uses chemicals to stay fresh on the shelf, but our investigation reveals that this brand uses chemicals just to trick you into buying it. For decades, the face of Morris the cat has persuaded Americans that this orange bag represents wholesome standard nutrition. But if you strip away the mascot and audit the ingredient panel, you find a chemical cocktail designed for shelf appeal, not feline biology. The prosecution draws your attention to the bottom of the ingredient list, where you will find mannadione sodium bisulfite complex. This is a synthetic version of vitamin K, often referred to as vitamin K3. While natural vitamin K is essential, this synthetic compound is controversial. It has been banned from human dietary supplements in several European jurisdictions due to links to liver toxicity and the destruction of red blood cells at high concentrations. Yet in U.S. pet food regulations, it remains a legal, cheap way to meet minimum nutrient requirements without using real leafy greens or organ meat. Furthermore, 9 Lives is legally guilty of sensory deception. The kibble is dyed with red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6. The Center for Science in the Public Interest has issued detailed reports warning that these petroleum-based dyes can be contaminated with carcinogens like benzidine. Here's the critical fact. Cats are colorblind to these red and orange spectrums. These dyes are added solely to make the dry pellets look like meat to you. Now, the human owner, your cat receives zero nutritional benefit from these petrochemicals, but assumes 100% of the biological risk. The liver must filter these synthetic agents every single day. Over a lifetime, this daily essential becomes a cumulative toxic load that no animal should be forced to bear. 7. Meow Mix. Meow Mix creates long-term cancer risks, but this next giant creates metabolic disasters. We all know the jingle. It is one of the most successful marketing earworms in history. But the forensic reality is that Meow Mix is a sugar trap disguised as protein. The primary indictment against Meow Mix concerns its biological incompatibility. The formula is dominated by ground yellow corn and soybean meal, pushing the carbohydrate content to levels that a feline body cannot manage. Physiologically, cats lack salivary amylase to break down starches in the mouth, and their livers have extremely low glucokinase activity compared to dogs or humans. When you feed a cat the high-carb load found in Meow Mix, you are forcing a metabolic spike that the organ cannot process, paving the direct road to feline diabetes and obesity. But how do they get a carnivore to eat a bag of corn? The answer lies in a specific ingredient: animal digest. Under FDA compliance policy guide, this is defined as material resulting from chemical or enzymatic hydrolysis of clean, undecomposed animal tissue. In plain English, it is a chemically treated slurry sprayed onto the kibble to artificially stimulate the cat's appetite. It is a sensory bribe to mask the lack of real meat. Furthermore, to prevent the fats in this processed food from going rancid, Meow Mix utilizes BHA, butylated hydroxyanisole. The National Toxicology Program of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has officially listed BHA as reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen. While you might be saving money at the checkout counter, you are exposing your pet to a substance that federal health agencies have flagged as a potential cancer-causing agent. Meow Mix is not just fast food for cats, it is a metabolic and toxicological hazard. 6. Friskies. Indoor. Dry food is notorious for kidney issues, so you might think switching to a formula labeled indoor is the responsible choice. Think again. Friskies Indoor Delights is not a health solution. It is a dehydration bomb that creates the perfect biological conditions for the single most painful emergency in feline medicine: urethral blockage. The prosecution charges Friskies with chemical manipulation. Many owners report that their cats are obsessed with this food and refuse to eat anything else. This is not because it tastes like high-quality meat. It is because the kibble is coated in powerful palatants, often containing pyrophosphates. These chemical additives hijack the cat's sensory system, creating an artificial addiction loop, often referred to by veterinarians as the kibble crack effect. Your cat isn't thriving. They are chemically dependent on a product that is failing them. And the failure is physical. Friskies relies on plant-based proteins which alkalize the urine. When you combine high pH urine with the chronic dehydration inherent in dry food, you trigger the formation of struvite crystals. These microscopic shards act like sandpaper in the bladder. For male cats, these crystals can fuse into a plug, causing a total urinary blockage. Without immediate expensive surgery, the bladder can rupture, leading to fatal toxicity. Furthermore, we must address the safety record. Nestlé Purina is not infallible. In 2011, the company had to issue a recall for products manufactured at their Dunkirk, New York facility due to salmonella contamination. When you buy Friskies, you are buying from a massive industrial line where quality control has historically faltered and where the indoor label serves as a marketing mask for a product that systematically destroys urinary health. 5. Sheba looks cheap and acts cheap, but what happens when you pay more and still get garbage? Welcome to the premium lie. Sheba markets itself as a luxurious gourmet dining experience for your cat. You're utilizing perfect portions packaging to imply convenience and quality. However, a forensic audit of the formula reveals that you are paying a premium price for plastic packaging and industrial thickeners, not high-quality protein. The prosecution points to the texture manipulation. The gravy, or pâté, consistency in Sheba is not achieved through the natural gelatin of slow-cooked meat. It is engineered using guar gum and tapioca starch. These cheap carbohydrate fillers are used to bind water and create volume, meaning a significant portion of what you are buying is simply water held together by vegetable gum. For cats with sensitive stomachs, guar gum is a known irritant that can cause loose stools and gas, often mistaken for a food allergy. More concerning is the invisible threat: sodium. Independent nutritional analyses have shown that certain Sheba formulas contain sodium levels exceeding 1.5% on a dry matter basis. While healthy cats can excrete excess salt, this level is dangerously high for senior cats or those with early-stage heart or kidney disease, conditions that often go undiagnosed until it is too late. Feeding a high-sodium diet to a compromised cat is like pouring fuel on a fire. Finally, we must address the environmental cost. The perfect portions, peel, and serve format generates a massive amount of non-recyclable, single-use plastic waste. You are paying for a marketing gimmick that pollutes the planet while feeding your cat a diet filled with sodium tripolyphosphate and starchy fillers. It is an illusion of luxury that offers zero biological advantage over the cheapest canned foods on the market. 4. Special Kitty, but at least Special Kitty is cheap. Our next brand charges a premium price for ingredients that belong in chicken feed. However, we cannot skip the brand that represents the single greatest failure in pet food history. Special Kitty, the private label brand of Walmart, is not just low quality, it is a game of manufacturing roulette. The prosecution submits into evidence the events of 2007 known as the Great Pet Food Recall. Special Kitty was heavily implicated when its contract manufacturer Menu Foods distributed wet food contaminated with melamine and cyanuric acid. These industrial chemicals were intentionally added to wheat gluten imported from China to artificially inflate protein test results. When consumed, these two chemicals combined in the kidneys to form insoluble crystals, blocking the renal tubules and causing acute kidney failure in thousands of cats. This wasn't an accident, it was supply chain negligence. Defense attorneys might argue that was a long time ago, but the pattern of negligence continues. In January 2017, the J.M. Smucker Company, which was producing Special Kitty at the time, had to issue another recall. This time, the food was found to have insufficient levels of thiamine. This is critical. Cats cannot produce their own thiamine. If their food lacks it, they develop severe neurological symptoms within weeks. We are talking about ventroflexion, seizures, and eventually death. When you buy Special Kitty, you are buying a product from a lowest bidder contract system. Walmart outsources production to keep costs down, and history proves that when production costs hit rock bottom, safety protocols vanish. This is the clearest example of cheap food becoming the most expensive mistake a pet owner can make. 3. Iams. Iams is disappointing, but our next brand committed something much worse: calculated legal fraud. But first, we must dismantle the myth of Iams. For decades, Iams has positioned itself as the scientific choice, a step up from the grocery store junk. But a forensic review of the modern proactive health formula reveals that you are paying a premium price for ingredients that belong in chicken feed, not in a carnivore's bowl. The prosecution presents the ingredient panel as evidence of ingredient inflation. While Iams may list chicken as the first ingredient, it is immediately followed by chicken byproduct meal, corn grits, and ground whole grain sorghum. Corn grits are essentially the starchy leftovers from corn processing. By splitting the grain content into different names, corn grits, sorghum, beet pulp, Iams avoids listing grain as the #1 ingredient, a tactic known in the industry as ingredient splitting. Biologically, this is a disaster. Meow are designed to derive energy from animal fat and protein. Iams forces them to run on complex carbohydrates. Because plant-based protein has low bioavailability compared to muscle meat, your cat has to consume more calories to get the usable amino acids they need. This explains why so many cats on Iams struggle with weight gain and large, odorous stools. Their bodies are desperately trying to process the massive amount of indigestible plant matter. Furthermore, the brand's safety record is tarnished. In August 2013, the FDA announced a recall of Iams dry cat food due to salmonella contamination. This bacteria poses a risk not just to the cat, but to the humans handling the kibble. When you buy Iams today, you are buying a legacy name, but the bag is filled with agricultural fillers and byproducts that offer arguably little nutritional advantage over the cheapest brands on the shelf. 2. Blue Buffalo. If you can't trust a brand that markets itself as natural, you'd think you could trust the one many people assume is vet-approved. Wrong. This is one of the biggest betrayals in the aisle. Blue Buffalo isn't just a brand, it's a case study in corporate deception. For years, they dominated with the True Blue promise, clearly advertising on their bags that the food contained no chicken or poultry byproduct meals. And they charged premium prices because that purity claim was the entire selling point. But in 2014, that story cracked in federal court. Independent forensic testing found that despite the marketing, Blue Buffalo Kibble contained the very ingredients they promised to avoid. The company denied it at first. Then in 2015, faced with evidence they couldn't explain away, they admitted in court that a substantial amount of their product did contain poultry byproduct meal. This wasn't a simple mix-up. It was deception, and it ended in a $32 million class action settlement to reimburse consumers who were misled. And the risk isn't only legal, it's medical. The FDA's investigation into dilated cardiomyopathy later listed Blue Buffalo among the brands most frequently named in reports of this fatal heart condition. The concern is that some grain-free formulas replacing corn with heavy amounts of peas and lentils may interfere with taurine uptake, weakening the heart muscle until it enlarges and fails. So the brand that sold you purity through bold promises also sold a grain-free solution that regulators have flagged in heart failure reports. There's no True Blue promise here, only a promise of risk. 1. Hill's Science Diet. Now that we've resolved the budget lies and the so-called natural imposters, we reach the most painful revelation of all. This is the brand sitting on the shelf of your veterinary clinic. It's the brand many owners buy when their cat is sick, believing they're paying for a medical miracle. But the evidence suggests Hill's Science Diet has been involved in failures so serious, it feels like a prescription label was used as protection, not safety. In 2019, that trust took a direct hit. For a company that sells itself on precise scientific formulation, Hill's made a deadly quality control mistake. On January 31, 2019, the FDA issued an urgent alert and a massive recall of Hill's canned foods due to toxic levels of vitamin D. This wasn't a minor deviation. The vitamin D levels were high enough to trigger hypervitaminosis D. Excess vitamin D can cause hypercalcemia, a dangerous spike in blood calcium, and that calcium can start mineralizing soft tissue instead of strengthening bones. In the kidneys, it can lead to renal calcification, effectively turning kidney tissue into stone. Owners reported symptoms like vomiting, or increased thirst, and eventual kidney failure, assuming their pets were simply getting worse, not realizing the food itself could be driving the collapse. The aftermath led to federal litigation with allegations that Hill's failed to properly verify vitamin premixes supplied by vendors, violating the very trust that lets the brand charge premium prices. And even outside the recall, the ingredient reality raises its own questions. Flip over a bag of Hill's adult dry food, and you'll often see wheat gluten or corn gluten meal listed near the top. You're paying veterinary-level pricing for agricultural binders that can inflate protein numbers without delivering the amino acid profile of real meat. Hill's benefits from authority bias because we trust clinics and white coats. But a clinical setting doesn't cancel out the danger of vitamin D overdoses or the biological mismatch of filler-heavy formulas. That's why this one lands as the ultimate betrayal. A brand bought to protect a sick cat, yet in documented cases, it became part of what harmed them. 3. Tiki Cat. Now that we have exposed the lies, let's talk about the few brands that actually tell the truth. If you prefer US-made options, hang tight. But first, we must look at a brand that is redefining what cat food looks like. Safe alternative number 3. Tiki Cat. The first thing you notice when you open a can of Tiki Cat, specifically the After Dark or Luau lines, is that it actually looks like food. There is no mystery mush, no gelatinous gray sludge. You see actual shredded chicken breast, whole prawns, and sliced fish in a clear broth. Forensically, this is significant. It means the manufacturer is not hiding low-quality byproducts behind a wall of industrial thickeners like guar gum. You can visually verify the protein source. While Tiki Cat is produced in Thailand, this is a strategic advantage. They utilize human-grade facilities, the same massive canneries that produce premium tuna for human consumption globally. This ensures a level of food safety and hygiene that often surpasses domestic U.S. pet feed plants. Biologically, this is a victory for diabetic and overweight cats. Most Tiki Cat wet formulas have near zero carbohydrates. By eliminating potatoes, corn, and wheat, they respect the feline pancreas. It is expensive, yes, but you are paying for protein, not starch. If you want a diet that mimics the prey model without the hassle of raw feeding, this is your forensic safe pick. 2. Wellness Core. If you prefer a US-based brand that you can find at major retailers like Petco or PetSmart without needing a specialty order, safe alternative number 2 is Wellness Core, specifically their grain-free canned line. The forensic distinction here lies in protein integrity. When we audited the bad list, we found generic meat meal and animal digest. In contrast, Wellness Core anchors its formula with deboned turkey and chicken liver as the primary ingredients. This ensures your cat receives highly bioavailable amino acids directly from muscle and organ tissue, not from heat-damaged rendered waste. Furthermore, this brand passes the exclusion audit. We verified that their recipes are free from the specific toxins we indicted earlier: no meat byproducts, no artificial preservatives like BHA, and no corn, wheat, or soy fillers. Crucially, many of their pâté formulas are now carrageenan-free, eliminating a common inflammatory additive used by competitors to cheapen the texture. Wellness Core strikes the necessary balance between accessibility and safety, providing a dependable, high-protein diet without the deception found in mass-market brands. 1. Feline Natural. And finally, we arrive at the gold standard. If you want to feed your cat the closest thing to a wild diet without actually hunting, the forensic choice is Feline Natural. The distinction here begins at the border. Produced in New Zealand, this brand operates under the strict oversight of the Ministry for Primary Industries. Unlike the U.S. pet food industry, which legally permits 4D meats and hidden additives, New Zealand prohibits the use of growth hormones and GMOs entirely. You are starting with a cleaner biological source, but the real game changer is the processing method: freeze-dried technology. Remember the Maillard reaction and carcinogenic acrylamide we found in high-heat kibble? Freeze-drying eliminates that risk completely. It locks in the raw meat, organs, and bones at extremely low temperatures, preserving over 95% of the natural enzymes and fragile amino acids that cooking destroys. The ingredient list reads like a biology textbook, not a chemistry set. Grass-fed lamb, heart, liver, kidney, and New Zealand green-lipped mussels for natural joint support. There are no fillers, no starch, no gums. By rehydrating this food with water, you also solve the chronic dehydration issue caused by dry pellets. It is expensive, yes. But when you calculate the cost of treating chronic kidney disease or diabetes caused by cheap fillers, Feline Natural is the cheapest insurance policy you can buy. So, here is the bottom line. Real feline nutrition is about biology and meat. Industrial pet food is just chemistry and profit. Now, do me a favor. Check your pantry or your shopping list right now. Are you buying one of the toxic 10 we exposed today, or have you found a cleaner alternative? Drop the brand name you use in the comments below. Let's help each other navigate the pet food aisle and avoid these hidden additives. If you refuse to be fooled by cute mascots and vet-recommended marketing gimmicks anymore, hit that like button and subscribe. We are digging deep to uncover the truth behind the everyday products you trust. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next investigation.